So we're going to be talking about that. And I don't think there's any better person locally to ever talk about basketball in the United States, or generally. Let's call him by his alias name, because he's known by that. His name is Pioneer. Pioneer, you there?
What's up, Ian? What's up?
I'm good, brother. And there's also, no problem, Mike Roach, the broadcast assistant for the Toronto Raptors. Mike, good evening to you, sir.
Good evening, Wayne. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Meet Pioneer. Pioneer, meet Mike.
Hello there.
Mike, I think we have spoken. Mike, I have spoken. I think about 2 seasons ago. It was it last year.
Oh, okay.
When you were on this okay, cool.
Yeah, Mike and myself and G-Star did a show one evening.
Okay, we wanted G-Star, but we can't find G-Star, so we're going to just be on Pioneer. Will have to take us through.
No problem.
But what better place Mike, you would have seen a super game last night in New York, the Garden. It could have been tricky. If New York had lost, they wouldn't want to go down to Boston. So they took care of business last night. There were talks about the raucous support behind them would have derailed their effort. They would have gotten to them, because New York has not gotten to this stage in a long time, where the entire city was right behind the team. The orange and blue were back, all the Spike Lee, the this, the that. Madison Square Garden, the greatest arena in the world. Everything people thought the players would have crumbled under it. No, they didn't last night, and they took care of biz. They won the series 4-1. How would you reflect on that game last night, in particular, and the series?
I mean, listen, Boston at this point, I mean, great effort in game 4, but I mean...
Lift your voice, Mike. I'm not hearing you so well.
Oh, sorry. So, I mean, it was just an absolute beatdown. There was nothing that Boston could do against the New York Knicks, especially now when Jason Tatum goes down. You wanted to see Jaylen Brown step up a little bit, but it comes out today that he was now fighting a meniscus injury as well, that we didn't know about during that game, right? And so Kristaps Porzingis, he doesn't look good, doesn't even start the game, right? He comes off the bench. He looks like a shell of himself. They just didn't have anything left at this point. Drew Holiday didn't look like the same guy either. And so, the Knicks just kept coming. Brunson, OG from a defensive standpoint. I mean, they got railroaded. They had absolutely no chance in that game. The New York Knicks made a statement. They pretty much said, if you don't have Jason Tatum, don't ever think that you're going to walk up in Madison Square Garden and think that you're going to be coming against the New York Knicks. That's just not going to happen. And so they beat them down in an emphatic way, and they said, enough of this. We want the Indiana Pacers.
And they've got them. Pioneer, how would you reflect on last night's game?
For me, last night's game was a foregone conclusion. Before the series started, when I picked the Knicks in 6, for a couple of reasons. During the regular season, all the signs and the indications were that the Boston Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers would have been in the conference final. Both teams suffered from a similar fate. Boston picked up some key injuries at the end of the regular season. Drew Holiday was out. He came back around about the playoffs time, but you could see that he wasn't himself. Porzingis have been suffering from this injury that, according to him and his handlers, they can't seem to identify. We know that when he's healthy, he puts Boston over the top. He makes them almost unbeatable. We saw that last year in the NBA Finals. And Jaylen Brown himself, I heard Mike saying that came out today, but I heard from the first round that Jaylen Brown was carrying an injury. We could see the signs in the first round against Orlando. And going into this series, I thought New York, the injuries to Boston, and how I saw New York playing and the kind of resilience that they were showing in that series against the Pistons, I picked New York to win. So after Jason Tatum went down, yes, Boston did come back to win game 4. What was that? Game 5.
Game 5,
yes. They put up a stellar fight at home. But you got the feeling that coming back to the Garden, New York would be ready. They're healthy, and they're playing at a very, very high level. So I thought they'd handled business like I expected them to. Maybe maybe a little more emphatic than I expected them to, but I thought they would have won that game in the Garden last night.
Mm-hmm. Mike, did you pick New York at the start of the series to advance to the final?
No, I picked the Celtics. I picked the Celtics. And to me, you know what the really crazy thing about this series is? And seeing them lose 4-2? In games 1 and 2, the Celtics had a 20-point lead in each game in the third quarter. In the third quarter, they blew 2 20-point leads in back-to-back games. Now, to me, that is unbelievable. I mean, in those third quarters, if you saw the Boston Celtics up 20 points in each of those games and you decided to put some money on the Knicks, you won a lot of money. You won a lot of money because there is no way in hell that I thought that the Boston Celtics could be up at least 20 points in each of those games in the third quarter and lose. And so the Celtics, to me, actually kind of blew this in game 1 and 2 because they took those 2 games, the New York Knicks, and then went back home and got 1 out of the 2 as well. And so to me, that's where this series was ultimately lost for the Boston Celtics. It was games 1 and 2.
Right. The New York Knicks, let's stay with them before we go over to the West, now that we're on the East. So New York and Indiana, they meet in game 1 on Wednesday, next week, Wednesday. Yeah? The first game in New York. The fact that the Portland, the Indiana Pacers played could we call it a depleted Cavalier? Because the Cavalier we saw in the postseason, well, not in the first round, but the semifinal, it was really short on quality. It was way below the Cavalier that we saw in the regular season, even though we accept that regular season and postseason are 2 different basketball games. But the Cavalier were beset by injuries. Does it mean that we're still not sure how good this Indiana Pacers team is since they played a depleted Cavalier and probably were not pushed as much as we would have expected with a Cavalier at full strength? Either you can jump in, man. Let's have a conversation.
I discovered the Cleveland Cavaliers are obviously hampered. They played game 1 and game 4 of the series without Darius Garland, who is obviously their second best player. You could say him and Donovan Mitchell are 1A, 1B for whose team it is. Then they played game 2 without not only Garland, but they played also without Mobley and DeAndre Hunter, who they acquired at the trade window, who for me kind of gave them that extra input and kind of put them in a space where many thought they could come out of the East. Those players obviously were carrying injuries, but take nothing away from Indiana. They did what they needed to do. This is a deep team. The Indiana team, it's a deep team. It's a team who is devoid of a major superstar. Some people might think Halliburton is that. Some people might think Pascal Siakam, having won a championship in Toronto, is I wouldn't call him a superstar player, but he's one of those players who's at that level. But the team goes very deep. People like Montgomery, people like Obi Toppin, people like Nemard. You might find a night, and we saw that many nights in the regular season where they had eight players in double figures, scoring ranging from 10 to 21 points, and they would probably score 130. So they're that type of a team. They play at a very fast pace. They play intense, and they go deep, and they play good basketball on both ends of the floor. We were here last year, in the conference semifinal, New York versus Pacers, and we are going to get a rerun this year, and this time it's happening in the conference final.
Mike, you agree with Pioneer, or you still need to see Indiana against a full-strength good team to know what they really need of?
No, they're really good. They're really good. I think they're coached really well, and they have a really deep team. And as he mentioned, aside from Oklahoma City, Indiana is a team that legitimately has about 5 players that they play consistently off the bench. Like when you look at Thomas Bryant, McConnell, Benedict Mathurin, Ben Shepherd, Jarris Walker here and there, Obi Toppin. I mean, they have a depth. They have depth. They're really up and down, dynamic team. They'll put up 3-point shots. From a night-to-night basis in regards to Tyrese Halliburton and Pascal Siakam, you pretty much know what you're going to get offensively. And since the playoffs have started, Tyrese Halliburton has really played well. Really played well. Not shy. Last game to close out the series, 10 of 15 from the field, 31 points and plus 27. The emergence of Andrew Nembhard, he's really come on strong. Miles Turner is a guy who can stretch the floor for you. He has size. He can block shots. Naismith is tough defensively. I mean, overall, Georgia really well coached, but the thing that helps them the most is, like you mentioned, is depth. The depth is there. So their best players, they can get a breather. And I think that's going to be one of the key differences against the New York Knicks. They play heavy minutes. Listen, they all play heavy minutes at this point. But you look at like Nembhard, Halliburton, Siakam, they can go 36 minutes, 37 minutes, sometimes 34, 35. While typically the guys from New York, you're seeing close to 43 minutes, 44 minutes. It's nice that they can get a little bit more rest to be fresh for that fourth quarter. But I don't need to see anything else from the Indiana Pacers. I believe they're for real. These guys can play. Even though Cleveland was injured and they were hampered, I will give them that. But the Pacers are for real. They can play.
Can they beat New York? They go to New York on Wednesday for game one. Can they win this series and go to the NBA Finals?
I think they can.
I want to say something.
Yeah, all the Mike finally coming here.
I want to say this, and I'm going to just add a little bit to what Mike just said. For me, this series will be decided by coaching. Mike just mentioned the depth of the Indiana team. We all know Tom Thibodeau has this tendency where he overplays his starters. I think that's what made the difference in the series last year. I thought he overplayed his team, his starters. Remember people like Josh Hart and Brunson actually going down in that series against Pacers, playing 45 and 48 minutes. People like DiVincenzo, who was a part of the team last year, played 48 minutes in a lot of games. New York does have a bench this year. It is up to Tom Thibodeau to trust his bench. There's a player on his bench, Cameron Payne, who I think is a very good player. We saw him. He was a part of that big run when he was in Phoenix. Deuce McBride can play quality minutes. He needs to go deeper in his bench. This Indiana Pacers team plays an up and down style. They're like they turn a lot of games into trap meets. And because they're so deep, they can afford to do that. They rotate players and they play hard and they play fast. Tom Thibodeau will need to give his bench some minutes, to give his starters some rest for them to be very competitive in this series. On paper, the starting five of Knicks are better than the starting five of Indiana. But a lot will be dependent on the bench time, the bench production from both teams. And in terms of the bench, this is where Pacers can neutralize and can equalize. And it's going to be up to Tom Thibodeau to get some production from his bench players. And I think he does have the players to give him that production. So he'll need to remove from his ways of playing long minutes for his starters and trust in his bench players and give them some time so they can produce. Mike, you agree with that assessment?
I do agree with that, actually. You know, Tom Thibodeau, like he mentioned, he does have that stigma around him, right? Like he overplays his starters. But you know, going into the Eastern Conference Finals at that point, we may see that a little bit more from each of these teams now at this point, since it's really coming down to crunch time. I think, speaking of crunch time, they have the crunch time player of the year. And New York, they're going to really have to look at Jalen Brunson, because Jalen Brunson, to me, he's banged up a lot. And he's always all over the ground. He's taking dives. He's on his back pretty much every possession after going to the basket. He is going to be key. And the last 5 minutes of these games, I'm sure they're going to be rough. They're going to be tough. Guys are going to be getting hit. It's going to be physical. And the last 5 minutes are going to be crucial. And Jalen Brunson, to me, in that last 5 minutes of this series is going to be key. It's going to be key.
Right.
I'm not sure how much you can trust anybody else in clutch time when it comes to the Knicks other than Jalen Brunson. I I don't really see Karl Anthony Towns doing much damage in clutch time, but Jalen Brunson, he is the guy to look out for.
Tomorrow, the OKC and Denver meet in that crucial Game 7 in Oklahoma. It's set to get underway at 2:30 tomorrow. Mike, break down that game for me quickly. It's a crucial Game 7. We all, as basketball fans, love a Game 7. We have one tomorrow against two really good teams. Shea, I suppose it's Shea against Nicola. You break it down for me.
Well, listen, this is a slugfest in this series. This one can go either way. I think something that's key is you're going to have to look at what happens to Aaron Gordon because he did get injured. It could be a game time decision. And even if he does play, it may not be the Aaron Gordon that we're used to seeing. And he is going to be pivotal in this game. Okay. And the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're the team on the West that has the depth. They play legitimate 5 or 6 guys off the bench. You're talking AJ Mitchell, Carson Wallace, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe, Caruso, Jalen Williams. I mean, they have a lot of guys. But one of the guys who's really going to have to step up in this series from an offensive standpoint specifically is Jalen Williams. 6 points is not going to do it. 6 points is not going to do it. He has to be aggressive, which he has been, but his shooting has been off. 3 for 16 last game, 0 of 4 from 3-point range. Did give you 7 rebounds and 10 assists, 3 steals, which is good. He can affect the game other ways aside from scoring, but he's got to be able to put the ball in the basket. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to need some relief, and he's going to need it from somebody else. Somebody from the wing is going to have to make shots as well. I think Jalen Williams has to be that guy. Lujan Stort as well. We know he expands most of his energy defensively, but somebody has to step up to be able to give Shai Gilgeous some help, and Jalen Williams is that guy.
Pioneer, the smart money would be on OKC, not only because they're at home, but because of what they've put together this season. Some people's money is on them to be the best team in the NBA this season, which is still up in the air. But then, on the opposite side of the court will be a beast called Nicola. How do you see this one turning out tomorrow? It's good. It's a Game 7. Everybody wants to see this.
It's a battle of the MVPs. When both of them, Nicola and Shai Gilgeous, they are the leading candidates for MVP. Like Mike said, OKC has the depth. On the other hand, that is the thing that is Denver's Achilles heel. They have been struggling with depth all season. However, there was a good sign for them in the last game. We saw young striker coming up and putting up some points, knocking down some key shots, and giving them some impetus off the bench. The form and health of Aaron Gordon, as Mike said, will be key also. One person who would have been very disappointing in this series and very disappointing in this postseason is Michael Porter Jr. Mm-hmm. He's supposed to be one of those guys. He has size, he has length, he has one of the best shooting forms in the NBA. But when he gets off, he's a force to be reckoned, but he has been MIA in this series, hasn't scored any points, and as a result of that, a lot of pressure has been brought to bear on Murray and Joe. He'll need to show up tomorrow. Russell Westbrook, who spent most of his days in Oklahoma City, will be in OKC for a Game 7, a place that he's familiar with. You get the feeling that he might want to prove a point, so he's going to be key coming off the bench. If I were a gambling man to win, my money would be at OKC. They're going to be at home. They said role players stay better at home. We saw what Lou Dort did in the last game in OKC. Mike just mentioned the importance of Jalen Williams, Jalen Williams, who for the entire season has been the second scorer for OKC. He needs to come up big also. And Mike spoke of the depth of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I'm looking for big games from people like Isaiah Joe, Caruso, and the entire cast of the Thunder. If I were betting, my money would be on OKC tomorrow.
Wow. Well, the only Game 7 we've gotten right across the second semifinals. Those we all love a Game 7. It's for all the marbles. The winner tomorrow will take on Minnesota. And that game one in the Western Conference Final is on Tuesday at 7:30, and the winner tomorrow will be at home against Minnesota. Remember game one in the Eastern Conference Final, New York against Indiana? It's a throwback it's a throwback conference final. I remember the days where Reggie and Patrick and those guys clash up in the Eastern Conference. Well, Michael, made it really tough for them during those days. But this is really a throwback to the days. We expect some really great basketball in the conference final, but we have a small matter of settling the second semifinal in the Western Conference tomorrow. I'll be watching and really looking forward to OKC winning this one. But Nikola, wow, what a player. Can decide it. Gentlemen, it was an absolute privilege listening to both of you. Really, really knowledgeable basketball people. We'll have you back next week to look back at the last game and, look at the conference finals. If you would oblige us next week, but I'm sure we're going to be talking before that. Gentlemen, have a good evening and thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
You're
Thank
welcome,
you.
And blessings to you and the listeners.
Not a problem. All right, so Mike